もっと早く。
Now, whether you like it or not, Sword Art Online is one of the many staples in anime. Famous/infamous for its storyline, and what I personally feel like was a little bit of a letdown after the first 14 episodes of Season 1. Now, although I can't completely speak for the series since I've only watched up to Alicization, I can say that what I did watch in the show and storyline-wise wasn't all that enticing. But aside from that, the concept of SAO, hands down, was the coolest thing that I've ever seen. A VR MMORPG that basically matrixed its players, I thought was legendary. But what stood out to me the most was easily the VR MMORPG portion. Now, I feel like in saying that, Sword Art Online unintentionally kind of set everybody's expectations for the future of virtual reality.
No! Damn!
Now, just imagine something like WoW, or Blade and Soul, or Black Desert, or Elder Scrolls Online, or even Lost Ark, but in VR. Isn't that an insane idea? With a lengthy amount of playtime? Which, in saying that, I feel like addresses a huge issue in most VR games, being the level of depth and playtime. Granted, you might not want to have a micro TV strapped to your face for 10 plus hours, but a lot of the games in virtual reality aren't really deep or have a lengthy amount of playtime.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Granted, of course, there are a few exceptions like Boneworks, Half-Life Alyx, Blade and Sorcery, and much more out there, but not many if you really think about it. In comes Zenith The Last City VR, the supposed answer to a lot of VR enthusiasts' prayers, and possibly the closest thing we have to Sword Art Online to date. Though this definitely isn't the first review that you've heard on Zenith VR, nor would it be the last. You haven't heard me talk about it. Zenith The Lost City presents a level of depth and adventure that I haven't seen in almost any game except A Township Tale, which will be going on a video later actually. Yet, when I first booted it up with some buddies, it excited me for the potential that VR games will have in the future, and that this is just the first step. But A Township Tale and Zenith have really pushed the boundaries of what VR games could be in the future, and it brought up the question of depth and interactivity in their titles. There is so much to this game that I probably haven't even scratched the surface of with the little time that I've put into it so far, yet I'm excited to explore what's coming to the land of Zenith. So far, there's cooking, fighting, flying, climbing, social interactions in several different beautiful environments, caves and raids, and so much more. All of these things that I just described, I haven't even done half of them. The cooking system is so simple yet enjoyable with a vast amount of recipes that I've yet to discover.
Trying to send this little pancake thing into the stratosphere.
All the quests and leveling system work in an interesting way, and the climbing, flying, and combat system are all stamina based, which it kind of takes notes from Genshin Impact's book and makes like the stamina upgradable with in-game items with like these tiers that you walk around and collect. And a lot of the tiers aren't really hard to find since there's so many of them, and like they have an audio queue as well, but it does put some of the tiers in challenging areas that you might not be able to grab. So you really have to like train your in-game knowledge and mechanics and strategies to be able to like actually pick up as many of them as you possibly can. There are some that require you to like fly it and grab it in midair, but like it kind of puts you in a weird orientation system that one of my buddies was like running into trouble with. And like so much more. There's ones where you have to climb really tall trees and stuff like that. They're all over the place. It's really cool. Now, there are quite a few limitations to it, of course, but I'm willing to give it a little bit of leeway, given that it's one of the first few big VR MMORPG titles. Now, notice I said big. It's because there are VR MMORPGs, don't get me wrong, but I don't think anything had nearly as much hype or nearly as much of an explosive launch as Zenith did. Now, there's just a couple of things that fell a little short for me when I was playing Zenith originally for the first time that I hope that they update later, but we'll just have to wait till future updates. Well, first of all, the character creation is a little bit limited, considering the fact that there isn't that much variety in terms of actually creating your character in the first place. And in addition with that, there's only 2 classes. Now, it kind of helps expand upon the classes by having 3 subclasses within that class, which helps dive into different skill trees, all sorts of different gameplay, and all that sort of good stuff. But it's still only unfortunate as of right now that there's only 2 classes, but I'm betting this is something that they're going to expand upon later.
Dick. What? That's not good.
But what I do know that will be updated eventually is apparently there's a rumor that there's going to be a PvP update, so that seems very, very interesting. Yeah, I'm not necessarily certain how it's all going to work out, whether or not they try to introduce more physics between characters and players, or if it's going to be all stamina based. I'm not necessarily certain. There's many ways that they can handle this sort of thing. But it'll be interesting to see. But a big part that also might be really hard to do, but has been done in a sense, is the character physics interaction. So, if I was to smack my sword against somebody else's and they blocked it, the game physics would actually process the action of blocking instead of just phasing through each other and breaking immersion. One thing nowadays that VR games are really, really implementing is its physics, and I feel like the more VR games actually advance and the more that come out, try to implement some sort of physics system in so it actually helps with immersion. And this game has a little bit of it, but not much, to be honest. And it kind of is a little bit game-breaking. Now, although it may be somewhat of a player preference thing as well, I think the experience that I've had with like very, very physics-based games and how far it's come out in VR tech, I would personally love a more weighted and physical feel when it comes to the combat and interactions with the game. Now, I'm not saying that the swords need to be super heavy, but I kind of like the idea of like actually going through a swing of a sword and actually kind of feeling it as opposed to, you know, whipping your wrists around all like magically and then being able to just like clap enemies like that. Now, Zenith has a cool solution to that, where you actually need to try and get good and accurate swings to do the most damage output, as opposed to just like twisting your arms or spinning your controllers 1,000 times over like a helicopter in order to output a lot of damage. Now, granted, it might be hard to actually implement a lot more physics in a game this big, but it's definitely possible. As I mentioned previously, A Township Tale is a game that does that really, really well and will eventually be getting a video soon, but A Township Tale really likes to implement its physics systems even between players. Now, granted, it's a smaller community, it's a much more low-key game, and it's still a VR MMORPG, but when I'm interacting with people, I physically can, like, hit them. I can physically clash swords with them. I can physically, like, interact with them, and that just helps with its immersion so much more. Being new to VR might not make this that much of an issue. But for those who have tried games such as Boneworks, Blades and Sorcery, Half-Life Alyx, and other games that did an excellent job on the physics, as well as the upcoming games like The Walking Dead Chapter 2 and Bone Lab, physics tend to matter a lot more the more experienced you become as a VR player. And without them, this might take away from the other great mechanics that the game actually has to offer. Now, it might be a bit of a reach for me to ask for like a perfect physics system, but to be able to interact with like buildings or like players would also just be a cool addition that I hope they eventually add. But to be able to like actually like clash with players and stuff like that, depending on how the PvP system goes, I think it'll add a level of interactiveness and immersion that players would definitely appreciate. And a game this big, with this much support, I think it's definitely possible. Another really good thing about this game is the community. The community so far has been fantastic. Now, I assure you, there's probably like some toxic people out there, which, let's be real, there's a toxic person in every single game, but so far the community of this game has been very wholesome and like very nice, generous, open, and helpful.
Hey, sir!
Oh.
You're my buddy now. Kiss me.
Just stating, it wasn't a bit. I literally don't know who that person is.
Hey, where's Subway?
Where your clothes at?
That somebody randomly decided to just help us in like a little bit of a dungeon crawl that me and my friends were having a bit of trouble on. Just out of the kindness of their heart. They probably had a quest there to be real, but like, still, for them to even go out of their way to do that in like a lower level dungeon on their terms was still a really nice thing of them to do.
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up. Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight!
Overall, editing Rota here, I actually just realized that that was a referral code for the beater gear, a direct, reference from Sword Art Online. That's actually Kirito's outfit, but in Zenith. So if you guys want to get me that, use the referral code ROTO, that is ROTO. So yeah, give me the referral code. As one of the first major MMORPG releases that VR has to offer, it's a really good start, even though there's quite a bit of room for improvement, and hopefully that's something that can be implemented in future updates.
Ooh, the music change. You're entering a high-level zone. You should... Okay, well, I guess that says that. But what if... I want to see.
Now, although it might not push the boundaries in terms of physics, it definitely pushes the boundaries of MMOs on how much can be processed in just this small TV that's strapped to our skulls for entertainment. I think with a major leap like this in terms of MMO advancements and this much depth in a game, we are definitely getting closer to what we want Sword Art Online to be. Without the death, of course. Then again, I'm not certain. Some of y'all motherfuckers are wanting the death game or some shit. It's weird. Anyways, thank you for watching the video. I hope you got a couple of nose exhales. Or even considered buying Zenith VR if you do have a VR headset.
Imagine if they added a whole mining system where we'd be able to, like, pick this too.
This might be a game that I actually decide to play on stream, depending on when this video gets released, but I'd like to hear everybody's feedback on it because I want to implement more VR into my streams instead of just YouTube too. But anyways, don't forget to like, don't like, leave.